on their property. That grotto was hand-built in 1922 by Sister Louise Gabrielle, all by herself. And she dedicated it to the island. It actually serves as an eternal prayer. Hurricanes will never hurt the island or the parishioners of the church. That ceremony was 86 years ago. Now, what's happened to the island in that time span is a few years of high tides and high winds, but actually the one thing that we haven't experienced here in over 86 years is a direct hit from a hurricane. So we think the grotto's doing an amazing job. The average temperature on this island is only 77 degrees. The warmest that we've ever been, 97 degrees. You see, Key West is the coolest city in Florida in summer. It's the warmest city in Florida in the winter. Back in 1981, we set a record low temperature on the island. On a cold night in January, our mercury plummeted all the way to 41 degrees here. That makes us the only frost-free city in the continental U.S. 4 years ago, it tried to get really cold again. It made it all the way to 45 degrees. And the next morning, our school board called the snow day for the kids at school. That's just real Key West right there. This is also the driest city in Florida. We actually get less than 40 inches of rain a year here. Now, coming up on the left, a couple of blocks will be really, really old homes, well over 100 years. We call them conch houses. Starts with this two-story. Now, everyone you see for the next couple of lights, everything they said is over a century old. They're built up off the ground about 1.5 feet. That lets the tide, the wind underneath the TV. No metal nails in any of the homes. It's an all wood construction. And in the attic, over the rafters, there are leather straps that literally tie the roof down into the walls, keep it from blowing off in the high winds. Our old-timers say that the real reason the homes are still standing after over a century, though, is that when the wind does pick up, all the termites stick together and hold hands.
Exit
This is called the Aging Park, where we're going to circle around here. Now, that may sound like a strange name. This land to our right was originally the front yard of Eduardo Gatto, the wealthy cigar manufacturer. But he made his fortune, and in 1926 he decided to return to Cuba, and he donated the land to the city of Key West on an eternal deed that it can only be used for recreational purposes. So there are monuments actually to every war the U.S. has been in, with the exception of the American Revolutionary War in this spot. But Bayview Park, isn't that little extreme even for Key West? Imagine a line straight through the trolley. Folks of you on the right side of the trolley, where you're sitting, and all that way is what we call Old Town. That's the original island. All you folks on the left side, and for 2.5 miles to the end of the island, you guys are in Newtown. 40 years ago, this trolley would be sitting half in and half out of the water right here. The bay did start right where we are. This was all basically water. Why didn't I take you to Newtown? Who wanted to see McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken, the mall? It's Newtown. It looks just like any other place. It's a dredge and fill operation started by the Army Corps of Engineers in 1940. They finished it up in 1972. It's not old. It's ranch-style homes, and it looks like suburbia anywhere else. I did want to point out to you, though, a lot of people have heard about it but never seen it. If you look to the left, we are the winter home of the Loch Ness Monster. Missy's out there today. Yeah. Now, we call the island Key West, and we call this part to our right Old Town, but that's not the original name, neither Old Town nor Key West. The original name of that land is Cayo Hueso. The name was given to us by Ponce de Leon, you know, the old Spanish explorer out looking for the Fountain of Youth. He named this in 1513. The legend is that there were 3 tribes of Indians. They lived on all these little islands that make up the Keys. Now, when they decided to have a battle or an Indian war, they'd made an agreement among all the tribes. They wouldn't raid each other's villages, kill the women and children. They would meet up on this island, and this is where they would fight it out. Something about this land that they considered to be extremely sacred. The Indians understood that they were going to have dead warriors after the fight. But then they would go to kneel down beside a dead warrior, holding a knife or a tomahawk in their hand, and they would start to strike the ground to dig the grave. But what would happen is that after they hit the ground, just a couple of times. The blade of whatever they were using would always bend or break. You see, this island is a fossilized coral rock. You can't dig down into it. Don't let what's up on top fool you. The topsoil's been brought in. Holes have been blasted into the rock in order to try to put a tree. But as you can see, as they get big, see what happens? They lean and start to fall over. The Indians were never able to bury the dead, so they just left them laying on top of the ground. And depending upon the historian of your choice, that process went on for over 100 years, maybe well over 1,000 years. At any rate, in 1513, the Spanish come sailing by, and we can safely say that this little island is one place Ponce de Leon never set foot on that year, because the smell was so horrific from the island, he sent a group of people in to find out what was wrong with this place. And they came back and told him it was bleached out bones and decaying bodies all across the landscape, and he called it Cayo Hueso, the Island of Bones. Now today we're called Key West, but we're not the westernmost of the Keys. The Keys go another 70 miles to the west. They wind up in an area known as the Tri-Tortugas. But the change of name from Cayo Hueso to Key West only took a handful of hours one evening on this island, and it's been Key West ever since. The original English-speaking people that inhabited this island come from the Bahamas. Now the Bahamians are English territory. Those natives speak with a British accent. But prior to being British territory, the Bahamians are actually of French descent. Now, they've never spoken with the true French language. It's what's called a broken French, what we refer to as a patois. And of course, over the years, the Cubans have moved into the island, so a lot of people know how to speak Spanish. So basically, a Bahamian is an islander out there of French descent with a British accent that probably knows a few words in Spanish. Now, if you don't think that makes him hard to understand, bring him to this island, sit him down in a waterfront bar, and start to get him sloppy drunk one night. In walk a group of American sailors, and they look at the Bahamian and they go, "What a fun-looking guy! Why don't we party with him and make a new friend?" And they all start to heavily drink. And at the end of the evening, they can all barely walk, much less talk. But the Americans start asking the Bahamian what the name of this little island they're having such a great time on is. And the Bahamian tries to tell them. But remember, they've all been drinking heavily, so he slurs the words Cayo Hueso so badly, the Americans can't understand him. Matter of fact, not only do they not understand him, they don't realize he's saying Spanish. They think he's trying to say an English word, so they put their heads together, and when they have him repeat it over and over, they figure out that when he's saying Cayo, what he's actually was saying was Key, and Hueso was interpreted as West. The name Key West is a total misunderstanding of a Bahamian trying to say Cayo Hueso. But he had been drinking too much to say it properly, and the Americans had been drinking too much to understand it. Now, where your ship is docked at is the Gulf of Mexico side of the island. We're coming up to the opposite side of the island. So anybody know what this body of water ahead of us would be? This is the Atlantic side of the island. But what we're going to see when we get up here is not the Atlantic Ocean. We don't call it the ocean. You see, 6.5, 7 miles out at the horizon is a coral reef. Not just any reef, it's actually the third longest coral reef in the world. It starts 80 miles back to our northeast to Key Biscayne. It comes down the Keys and off our shores up in that general direction. It hangs a westward turn and it runs another 90 miles from here going on beyond the Tri-Tortugas. What you'll see when you get up here is we have no waves on our shore. This is the Straits of Florida. The Atlantic Ocean is on the other side of our Great Barrier Reef, and that's where the waves are. Here, it's just as calm and as peaceful as it wants to be. Don't let that appearance fool you. The Straits of Florida are considered to be some of the most treacherous water in the world to navigate for even the most experienced of boaters. This red brick structure coming up on our left is West Martello Towers. This is one of 3 Civil War forts on the island. But remember, during the Civil War, Key West was a Union garrison.